we have, because of modern technology and jobs and everything, shifted from an outdoor species to an indoor species. And I think that is probably the number one reason why chronic disease and mental health issues, just poor lack of health, has proliferated. That alone.
You're listening to Be Well by Kelly LeVeque. Tristan Scott is an electrical engineer and current head of hardware operations and marketing at Daylight Computer Co. He has deeply researched the connection between electromagnetism and human biology, with a specific interest in how artificial light and man-made electromagnetic fields, or EMFs, could be negatively impacting human health. He is now applying that knowledge at Daylight Computer, whose mission as a company is to create technology that is healthier and more synergistic with humanity. Tristan Scott, I'm so excited to have you on the show today to talk about Daylight Computers and your background and just to educate us on the 101 of blue light. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's exciting to meet in person finally. I know we've talked a bunch and talk about my favorite things.
Yeah, it's funny because I'm like, he's somewhere out in nature in Wyoming. Can I find him?
I will say I did leave an off-grid setup in the mountains to come here. But no, it's exciting. And sometimes this is even more impactful than being out alone in the wilderness. But it's a fun contrast, and why I think it's very fitting as well, because that's kind of what I talk about and what we're trying to do at Daily is how do we make the natural world and our modern society a bit more synergistic.
Yeah, I think we're definitely fighting modern society. I mean, it's wonderful. It has so many advantages. I think about even just my business and being able to become an entrepreneur overnight and start sharing recipes and research articles and tips and hacks and just really educating my community, and then feeling like, am I on my phone or my computer 24/7, like writing clients their nutrition plans or connecting with people on social media. Like, I feel like it's such a dopamine hit for so many people in this industry. It's just, I'm to the point where I'm like, I want a flip phone. Like, I want to be left alone. Like, I don't want to be carrying my phone around. I don't want my kids seeing me on my phone. I don't want to jump on my phone at night and end up awake at 1 a.m. I think someone called it, revenge insomnia. And it resonated with me, where you're like, I've given my whole day to my business and my kids, and I just want to read or learn or scroll. And it just, like, the deleterious effects on our health. It's just, it's hard, because how do you work and continue to move the needle in your life, whether it's education or business or connecting, without like having the side effects of all of the blue light?
Yeah, it's a struggle, right? And for me personally as well, I was spending more time in nature, dialing in the lifestyle as I was healing from having too many concussions. That's what sent me down this rabbit hole. And it was hard, because you're getting on social media, you're building a personal brand, you're learning from the internet, and it's an amazing tool. But at the same time, you're spending less time in person with people, connecting all through this digital medium, and you're staring at screens all day. And that's when, I realized that it was really the kind of last thing to really like fix and make healthier. And then, of course, got connected with Ungen and Daylight. And I was like, okay, this is, to me, the most important mission in the world, because each passing year we spend more and more time on average looking at our devices in this digital world. And also now we're raising the next generation in that world as well, which is scary. And we can get into why, but there is no going back. Unfortunately, I would like to sometimes, and I do, but we really need to understand that this world and the technology is such a tool to augment human capability and experience, but we are not using it responsibly, and we need to change that.
100% agree. Well, you just touched on a little bit of your background, but can you take me back? Who is Tristan? What is your background? What got you excited about this technology and Daylight Computers?
Yeah, so I mean, early background, I'm very fortunate because my mom is from Austria. So I grew up kind of not a traditional standard American upbringing, very nature based, even though we lived on the East Coast in populated areas, hiking, skiing, going to Austria in the summers, which we talked about because you're just there. So, very fortunate, organic, home cooked meals. And then, went to college, all of that like derailed. I played soccer in college. So I was always very active and into fitness, health, et cetera. And then I had one too many concussions and kind of lost control of my health and really was in a state where I couldn't do anything. I went from being an electrical engineering student, a college athlete, to not being able to exercise for almost a year, headaches every day, really bad, just post-concussive syndrome. And I realized I was like, okay, these experts aren't going to help me out. I went to neurologists. They're like, yeah, just take it easy, do some light rehab, the basics for an invisible injury, which is one of the most challenging things to recover from. And I realized I was like, okay, I'm going to take this into my own hands. I'm like 22 years old, very stubborn as well, and wasn't really accepting that new reality. And ironically, it was when I was spending a summer in Oregon where I was camping a lot more and being outside that I realized I started feeling better and I didn't even know why. And then I started to just be deliberate. I started meditating, reading books, researching, like just going down the rabbit hole of everything. And I realized there's all this accessible information available to heal, to get better. People with far worse situations had recovered from than I did. So I just became obsessed with health and implemented these things, supplements, lifestyle habits, stress reduction, sleep hygiene, diet, the whole shebang. And I got better. And then I graduated college and all of a sudden I was a young adult and I was like, okay, health is probably one of the most important things to be knowledgeable about. I'm going to keep learning in this realm and got really into the food, the diet, regenerative agriculture. I wrote and posted a lot about that at first. And then I realized that my background in electrical engineering was actually lend itself very useful to talking and understanding better the more electromagnetic aspects of our biology and health. And that was becoming slightly more popular over time. Like in 2018, I bought a pair of blue blockers. I was like grounding Matt in 2019. Like I was very early to these trends, but I didn't really go super deep until 3 or so years ago when I got on social media and I realized there was a big gap. Most people are talking about diet and food and exercise, but not a lot of people were talking about this more electromagnetic side of things. And those who did, there was a bit of, I would say, a gap in their knowledge and then also how to explain it. Or the people who really knew what they're talking about were like PhDs and did not know how to talk to the layman. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I think I can, really focus in here. So researched that a ton. And it was really exciting because to me, the whole premise, like you can go down all the physics rabbit holes and everything, but it comes back to we were designed to thrive in the natural world, and the natural world and our biology is inherently based at the lowest level in an electromagnetic fashion. And our electromagnetic environment is never discussed. It's not taught in the mainstream health, centralized medicine kind of education paths and physics in general. I think high schoolers aren't even required to take physics. It's definitely not taught in college. So just having a very baseline understanding is imperative. So I began talking about that online a lot more. And then I had my own podcast, got connected with Anjan, who started Daily Computer, or the mission behind it, like 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of just like, a match made in heaven because I was, I had worked in the semiconductor industry, so I know the business of electronics. I knew the health stuff, especially the electromagnetic side of things. And I was just extremely passionate about this topic because I, as we started, had gone through this journey of, wow, now I'm spending more time on the internet. I have the diet, the lifestyle, spend all this time outside dialed, but I can't buy a healthier iPhone. Like it just doesn't exist. And I never thought, I knew it's possible from an engineering perspective, but I never thought that really someone could compete in the market because we're talking about the biggest companies in the world and our economy is attention-based, which we can get into. So when I talked to Anjan and had him on my show, it was just like an immediate, I stopped everything I was doing and jumped on board. So that's been the last 2 years. And it's been such a wild ride and so much fun. I'm so grateful for it.
My new amino acid supplements come in flavorless and lemon water, and they're flying off the shelves, and here's why. I have meticulously sourced these vegan fermented essential amino acids from Japan. I am so proud of this being made the Be Well way, with maximum quality and minimum ingredients. My flavorless is simply those vegan fermented essential amino acids from Japan. Our lemon water contains minimal ingredients of only organic lemon powder, organic citric acid, and organic monk fruit. No natural flavors, no artificial flavors, no artificial sweeteners, no emulsifiers, no additives. This is simply that nutrition targeted for your goals. If you want to give my Be Well protein or aminos a try, or restock it if you're already loving it, take advantage of my gift for podcast listeners. Code podcast10 is going to get you $10 off just for being a listener. Write it down and shop with me after you listen. If you're trying to stay hydrated this summer without the sugar, food dyes, or mystery ingredients found in typical sports drinks, let me introduce you to Element. It's a zero-sugar electrolyte drink mix made for people who want to feel their best. Now, whether you're chasing your kids around the park, powering through a workout, or just trying to beat the mid-afternoon slump, electrolyte balance is key. Low levels can show up as headaches, fatigue, muscle cramps, and even brain fog. Element delivers a science-backed dose of sodium, potassium, and magnesium with none of the junk. And right now, I am absolutely in love with their limited time lemonade salt flavor. It's tart, salty, and basically summer in a glass. I love that I can enjoy this nostalgic taste of lemonade and feel good about sharing it with my boys on a hot summer day. Element lemonade stands incoming. We made one, we had one, it was the best. Check it out on my Instagram feed. And here's the best part. You can try Element totally risk-free. If you don't love it, they'll refund you. No questions asked. Plus, when you order through my custom link, you're gonna get a free 8-count sample pack of Element's most popular flavors, including 2 stick packs of citrus salt, raspberry salt, watermelon salt, and orange salt with any purchase. So just head to drinkelement.com/Kelly. That's drinkelement.com/KELLY. It's the perfect way to find your favorite and share with a friend. Well, I feel like you partnered with Anjan and you have a background that supports his mission, but from a different standpoint. So can we talk a little bit about like our human biology and how we interact with like the light around us and the electromagnetic fields around us? Like how does that, I think a lot of people think it's voodoo. They're like, oh, I'm not affected by Wi-Fi, or I'm not affected by light, or I'm not affected by flicker. And there's all these different things. Can we talk about the basics of us as human beings and then the basics of the things we interact with when it comes to devices or, routers or whatever that give off specific, I don't even have the words for it, like fields.
Yeah, fields, frequencies. Yeah, absolutely.
Frequencies.
I think inherently there's a gap because it's really not tangible for us. I mean, food is what everyone always goes to. Exercise, because it's like you physically feel it, you eat it, you can grasp it, and you often very quickly feel good or bad after eating the right or wrong things. The electromagnetic inputs are a bit different. So you have, in general, the electromagnetic spectrum is very vast. We're talking about everything from the electrical power coming out of your outlets, which is low frequency, to X-ray ionizing radiation. Slightly below that, we have ultraviolet, and then the visible spectrum of sun, and then radio frequencies below that. That's all the same quote-unquote stuff. It's all electromagnetic waves, just different frequencies, wavelengths, and energies of those photons and the waves that they're acting in. And you can go very deep down all the physics of it, but in reality, that's always present. And just the first statement I would always like to make on this topic is, yeah, you eat, it's very important, but you're eating 3 times a day, let's say. You're drinking water, very important, 8-10 times a day.
Cheers.
You're consuming electromagnetic inputs 24/7, 365. There's never a break. And if there is a break, if you weren't, for some reason, if you're in a shielded Faraday cage, that would be a huge problem. And they've done studies that have actually implemented that, and the people get completely out of whack. Their circadian rhythms desynchronize almost immediately. They can't sleep. So it is imperative. It's really the baseline of biology and the input signals that we need. And I'll say that a lot because as an engineer, the way I think about it is we're a system, just like any other system. And if you want to optimize the outputs, which is your energy, your vitality, your emotional, like stability, happiness, et cetera, fertility, well, you have to optimize and align the inputs. Like, what inputs are you putting in? And people think of the physical ones, but I'm here to say the ones that are less tangible, invisible often, are even more important because they're really setting so much of the biological cascade of reactions and the way our system works together in synchronicity or desynchronizing it depending on your environment. So starting with the one that everyone maybe grasps more is light, because you can see it. So sunlight. Really important here is we were designed to just take the sun as an input signal. So anything that deviates from the sun is going to be a bit alien. So the sun is full spectrum. So yes, it contains blue light, it contains red light, it contains ultraviolet, it contains infrared. It's actually mostly infrared light. And that's where, red, infrared light has become popular as therapies and panels and all these things, when 55% of sunlight is infrared from an energy perspective, 70% from photons per second perspective. So if you want red or infrared light therapy, you can just go outside. But as we're sitting here in this room, there's actually very little infrared light because the glass filters it out. Modern lighting does not have infrared typically because we switched from incandescent bulbs, and we now have an imbalanced light spectrum typically in indoor lighting that's very heavy in the high energy visible, which is blue light, and very lacking in the red infrared. So that's an example of how we have changed the input signals, and it's also far more dull. It lacks the intensity. Even though it's overcast outside, it would probably be at least 100 times brighter than this room right now.
Yeah.
And brightness is really just a measure of photon density, which is a measure of energy density, because light is energy. So you're leaving a lot of energy on the table by living indoors. And this is one of the main shifts I want to talk about, right? Is we have, because of modern technology and jobs and everything, shifted from an outdoor species to an indoor species. And I think that is probably the number one reason why chronic disease and mental health issues, just poor lack of health, has proliferated. That alone. And because we have just changed our environment completely. So the light is really important because that's what's driving a lot of the timing and a lot of the biological systems at the utmost upstream level. And again, if you think about any system, in my opinion, the most important thing would be the timing of reactions. Like in this podcast, for example, if I had showed up an hour late, we wouldn't have been able to do the podcast. Like the timing is undervalued because it's so just like common how we communicate and show up to things. But in a biological system where there's trillions of reactions going on all the time, it's so important. And the timing is driven predominantly by light. And that's the circadian rhythm that we know. And that's where the blue light piece is really important, because blue light's the master setter or zeitgeber of the time giver of the circadian rhythm. And that's also where it's like blue light is not inherently bad.
Yeah.
It's actually really important for us because when we wake up in the morning, we would be outside or go outside. Blue light stimulates our system, sets our circadian rhythm, is the most dopaminergic form of light. So now we have this kind of energy and push to go and accomplish whatever's needed throughout the day. And then, of course, at night, when the sun goes down, that's no longer present. And that allows our body to restore and repair through the, melatonin pathways. And it's really a balance. So in nature, there's all this cyclicality and there's all this context, and everything we kind of have done in this modern world has really distorted that. So that's getting into the light piece. We could talk about that for hours.
But wait, I want to stop you because I think back to the cage you were talking about. And at first I thought you meant like just getting rid of like Wi-Fi and electrical outlets and artificial light. But you were talking about taking away the sun too, because that
Everything.
was part of that spectrum. So now that makes sense to me. It's giving me context that, because I do know, I mean, obviously, like people like Andrew Huberman and have really popularized going outside first thing in the morning to get that sunlight in your eyes first, to really kind of like start your day and sync your circadian rhythm. But knowing that like the blue light coming in from all of our artificial lights, especially our screens at night, is derailing that process. So can you break down for me like best practices in this modern world for taking advantage of the light? I mean, my skin probably shows it. I am a sun worshiper. Like I think about the happiest times in life. I remember in high school driving with my best girlfriends to Laguna Beach and being at the beach, like I want to say every single day of summer. Like we were just there. We were there all day. Like I feel like my appetite was regulated. My sleep was regulated. I felt like the happiest I'd ever been. And then on days like this, where I do tape 4 podcasts in artificial lights with the blinds closed, like there are multiple times where I'm like, open the curtains, let me go out on that balcony. Like I just need to stand there. And there's something about when you have conference days or long days in fluorescent lighting where it makes you feel sick. Like in my past life, when I would be like, let's say at Cedars-Sinai for like 6 to 8 hours a day in those OR lights or under that fluorescent light, like I felt very dysregulated with my appetite. I felt like my energy was, I want to say like through the floor, like no energy, not enough food could make me feel like I was alive. And I mean, a vacation or being at the beach or being outside, it's like a complete game changer for me. What's happening in our body when we're in contact with the sun from the morning all the way through the night? Like how can we charge our batteries?
Yeah, well, that's really what's happening. We're giving our body the energy, the input signals it needs to produce energy, to have optimal, mitochondrial function, which I think is the most important aspect of our biology, because that's where everything's really going on in our cells. That's where energy production is happening. That's where water production is happening. So hydration cellularly, that's where communication really is the hub of communication. So when you have optimal mitochondrial function, which is imperative, it's almost required, I should say, to have the optimal light function to get that, because all of the interactions there, they're very photosensitive and they're dependent on energy inputs. And yes, blue light from fluorescents or LEDs, they're problematic because they lack the balance of the full spectrum. So if you had offset that with infrared light, for example, then it would be a different story. And then they're also flickering on and off, which is another stressor to your body. So it's getting the oxidative stress cascade kicked off when you have like highly isolated blue light that's flickering. And really, it's sending all the wrong signals to your body. So it's very confused. It's causing cellular confusion because it's very heavy in blue light, but then it's dull. So your body doesn't really know what time it is, and it's kind of trying to figure that out. And it's causing a mess because if you're in this environment all day, to your body, really, nothing's changing in here. The most important aspect of nature is that it's extremely dynamic and cyclical. And every hour, every 10 minutes even, it's shifting. The angle of the sun is shifting. The spectrum of light is shifting. Even the Earth's natural geomagnetic field has tons of fluctuations and pulsations. And that's what your body is aligning to. So when you feel really good, it's because it's aligning to those fluctuations. And we know that, our hormonal cycles, like for men, it's 24 hours, for women, it's 24 and like 28 days, right? So everything is synchronized to nature's cycles, and that's when you feel your best. It's not only an energetic thing, it's not only a timing thing, it's really a synchronization at the highest level. And that's what nature is about. It's really kind of getting those feast famine, those night dark, the really always a cyclical nature to it. And then you can throw in longer infraradiance signals like seasons as well into that mix also.
As a mom and a clinical nutritionist, I'm always looking for clean, effective ways to support my boy's health. And that's why Haya has been a favorite in our house. Most kids' vitamins are basically candy, loaded with sugars, dyes, and gummy additives, and that's what I don't want in my pantry. Hiya is totally different. It's a chewable vitamin made with 0 sugar, pressed with a blend of 12 organic fruits and veggies, and packed with 15 essential vitamins and minerals that support immune health, energy, brain function, and more. With your first order, you're going to get a reusable bottle and all these cute stickers so the kids can decorate it. Then each month, they send an eco-friendly refill straight to your door. And if your kids are picky about greens, Hiya now has a chocolate-flavored Daily Greens Plus superfood powder that you just mix with milk or a non-dairy option. And you've got a delicious drink packed with 55 plus whole food ingredients to support brain power, development, and digestion. Now, we've worked out a special deal for my listeners. You're going to get 50% off your first order. So just head to hiyahealth.com/Kelly. That's HIYAHEALTH.com/Kelly, spelled KELLY, to get your kids the full body nourishment they need to thrive. It's so fascinating to me and cool that you know all of this. I feel like I'm so excited that you mentioned like the 28-day cycle for women too, because I don't think people realize with all of the birth control and artificial controlling of our menstrual cycles that we actually sync with the moon.
The moon.
Yeah. And it was so like for me in like I was able to, and I haven't, like I had maybe a year in college where I was on birth control and then just didn't really love it. And then was in the phase of like having babies, making babies, feeding babies. And we didn't have our curtains up in our new house at the time. And the moonlight would come through our window. And it took me like not even a month. And I was cycling with the moon and it was the coolest thing ever. And when I tell people, like I ask the question, like, are you cycling with the moon? And they look at me like I'm crazy. But it's amazing. And being this close to the beach and my husband being a surfer and he's constantly like the waves are from the moon. And it's like all like, we're just like, we're so in touch with nature and we're so affected by nature. But I think people are putting up these blocks and these walls and they're over caffeinating and getting on blue screens and they have no idea that their body could be syncing with the earth in like a synergistic, beautiful way.
Yeah. It's amazing, right? And it's cool when you synchronize and you see that and you get this just inflow of energy, even for men, right? On the full moon, it's like you want to be more active, and it's not a lot of light. It is not a lot at all, but compared to a new moon, it's quite a drastic change. And for me, the way I like to encapsulate all this is that the signal to noise ratio has never been lower. And that is a measure, that's an engineering term, but it's basically when you're communicating with anything, there's a signal and then there's noise on the line. The signal is what you want to hear, and the noise is all the junk.
Or something?
Yeah, static, whatever. And now we have predominantly noise.
Yeah.
And the signal, the real inputs, the moon, the light of the sun, the Earth's natural magnetic field, all the real food, et cetera, the real relationships, all of that, the real dopamine, that's been so diluted, and it's mostly noise on the line from all these artificial inputs. And that's why we're struggling so tremendously with our health, with our relationships, with kind of everything that's going on, because we've diluted the signal that really matters so heavily. So if there's one takeaway, it's try and increase the input signals and your exposure to them that matter, the natural ones, the sun, getting your feet on the earth, getting outside as much as possible is the real simple recommendation. Obviously, that's challenging if you work inside. Getting windows, opening them up, taking breaks, taking meetings outside on walks. These are all helpful things you can do. And then we haven't talked about the rest of the electromagnetic spectrum, but that all can be categorized as noise, all of it. RFs, power frequencies, none of that. When I take my RF meter out to where I'm like hunting and camping in Wyoming.
Stopping you. What's an RF meter? What's RF?
I never, you mentioned it earlier. So I'm like, okay, cool. We could dive into this. But so radio frequencies, what we use to communicate. Okay. Cell phones, Wi-Fi, airport communications, OG radios were like the first, radio frequency communication. And they use a vast band of frequencies and spectrums. That's why you have like a 5G on your Wi-Fi and a 2.4G. Those are just different frequencies. That's why we've had 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, cellular generations, which all use a swath of different frequencies. And really what I'm trying to say is all of these signals are alien.
Yeah.
And there are now thousands of studies. You can look up folks like Dr. Henry Lai, who's kind of collected a lot of these studies and has a massive Google Drive, and you can look through them. But the high level is they stress our bodies out. They cause electromagnetic interference with our mitochondria, and they lead to things like neuropsychiatric issues, oxidative stress in the most important tissues, fertility issues. There's a lot. You can go down the list, pretty much have been linked to all chronic diseases in some capacity, and there's been some really groundbreaking studies that have kind of been covered up, like the National Toxicology Report showing that I think it was 3G phones and signals statistically significant increased risk in rats for cancer in your heart and in your brain. And a lot of this has just been muddied up because it's, one, very inconvenient and we can get into that across the board, blue light, radio frequencies. It's very inconvenient for that to be true, that it's harming us. And the severity is a challenge because we're exposed to so many different frequencies and EMFs on a daily basis. Like right now, there's, I don't even know, probably dozens. No, in general, anywhere, in my house, like you're walking down the street, like you're getting so many different signals and frequencies. It's almost impossible to do like a really high quality study. But when you see just this mountain of evidence we're talking since the 60s, 50s, when a lot of this earlier EMF research began and was actually funded by the government and the Navy often. And that's where you have to go back and kind of look at this open-minded. And a lot of that back then was done on the power lines and the electrical power. And they pretty much came to a conclusion that this stuff is harmful for our biology, but the infrastructure was already in place. There's nothing you can really do about it. And the public has accepted that risk. And now here we are. We had that baseline of the electrical power and all these devices and appliances, and we've added an entire wireless infrastructure on top of that. So we're basically just being bombarded with so many non-native alien signals all of the time. And at a low level, it's really just confusing our biology. We need electromagnetic signals to interact properly. And now we have so much noise on the line, it's causing cellular confusion, it's causing oxidative stress, mitochondrial dysfunction. And that's what you see in the most sensitive areas, like your heart, your brain, your liver, and your reproductive organs. That's where all this is manifesting. Fertility is in the toilet. We have more like abnormal heart conditions than ever before. We have more abnormal psychiatric and psychological conditions than ever before. And that's the state of affairs. And no one wants to point the finger at technology because it is, what we use every single day.
Yeah.
And the practical tips are coming back to that, just trying to get outside as much as possible. That's where the best signals and the real signals are going to be. And then being deliberate with how you use technology and making easy swaps where you can, not carrying these things on your body because distance is the most important, distance from the source, and not, holding it next to your brain where it's really sensitive, or in your front pocket or in your bra. And if you don't need it, turn it off. At nighttime, the Wi-Fi, same thing with lights. Like, you don't need all these lights on. Turn them off at night. You're going to sleep better. And really augmenting the exposure during the day of the natural signals. So that's the best advice. And you can go down and optimize to the utmost level. But the more you can kind of shift to what exists in nature, and be more deliberate about your technological use, and that's the best you can do in a modern world.
Yeah. It's interesting because I remember when my parents were looking to buy a new home. Like, we had lived in the Mission Viejo in Southern California until I was like 15 or 16 years old, and they were starting to poke around at like new neighborhoods. We kind of were starting to outgrow our house. And there was one neighborhood that was like under power lines, and they were like huge ones. And my mom, like we drove over there and she didn't even like go into the models that they had. She was like, we're out of here. And I was like, what? I thought we were getting a new house. She was like, no, I like those things cause cancer. And I just remember that like so vividly, like leaving that brand new neighborhood and being like, okay, whatever. We ended up like moving into a different home. And ever since then, like I've always been like really weary of those things. And now it's like 5G, like fake trees are going up all over where you're like, that's not a tree, but nice try. And I get like really worried about it. And to the point where the recurring fight that Chris and I have in our marriage is that he loves Ricky Gervais and like family, like likes, it's like a bedtime story. He wants like something funny, something silly before bed, and it ends up putting him right to sleep. And then he's streaming YouTube videos in bed, and I wake up and pick up his phone and throw it across the room, and I'm like, no, you can't do this. You're gonna give us like brain cancer. Like I'm so freaked out by it, but I don't like. I just, to the point where I'm like, we'll get the YouTube membership so you can download it to your phone. So we're not
that's best.
Wi-Fi streaming it, and we're not cellular streaming it. And so we've been able to like find our common ground. And he has his like 5 or 6 episodes that he'll, if he like is having a hard time falling asleep, that he'll listen to when he falls asleep. And like, that's a good compromise for us because then I'm not crazy person at 2 a.m. But it's like those kinds of things. Like what's worse, like cellular frequency, like from a 5G to your phone, or Wi-Fi? Like,
yeah, it's a good question. And I think before I answer it, the important aspect is definitely to be realistic and not neurotic about things. So I used to be like that too. And it's like, the perfection is not
it's
not
the enemy
real.
of good.
Well, perfection is not even possible. Like straight up with EMFs and artificial light, you can't. It's not even possible. There's no going back on that.
Yeah.
So it's really doing as best you can and knowing that things in your closest proximity are the highest exposure. Your phone is by far the worst offender because it's on you all the time, People like it's attached at the hip. I mean, we're basically debatably cyborgs now.
Yeah.
So people are like, I have a 5G tower like a quarter mile away. I'm like, dude,
you have a 5G phone in your pocket.
Yeah, that's what it's pinging. So if you turn the phone off, the tower doesn't matter as much. And the other thing is that, like I said, we're constantly being exposed to many different frequencies, and a lot of them do the same exact thing. So the easiest thing I tell people is your phone right now, it probably has cellular on, Wi-Fi on, and Bluetooth on. And you don't need all of them. And the Wi-Fi router in your house has 2 different frequency bands, the 5G and the 2.4, and you only need one of those. So Wi-Fi is typically lower power density than cellular communication, and your phone's going to output a weaker signal because the Wi-Fi router is closer. So whenever something is further away or it's challenging to connect, like if you have low service, your phone is going to like boost the output power of its radio frequency much higher. So what I recommend is...
So it's actually better to have Wi-Fi in your house at a lower frequency than pinging 5G from a tree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's better to just turn your phone on airplane mode all the time and just turn Wi-Fi on when you need it. And you only have Wi-Fi on, and then you're not using 2 different frequencies, pinging 2 different networks for the same things. And then if you don't need it, you just turn it off. Like if you're going for a walk or you're going to work on your laptop, then just turn it off. And of course, like I said, distance. So if it's on your body, like don't put your laptop on your lap, your phone next to your head, because all these signals, light, radio frequencies, electrical power, they all decay at a square intensity. So like
a multiple.
A multiple. So if you double the distance, it's 2 squared, 4 reduction in the field. If you triple the distance, it's a 9x reduction in the field. It's called inverse square law. So distance is your best friend. And that's where even if you put a foot away or 2 feet, it can make tremendous amount from the intensity of the field itself. So ideally everyone's like hardwiring their internet. That's like the absolute best. There's no wireless signals, but I do that, and I can tell you it's extremely inconvenient. I know most people are not going to do that.
Yeah.
But there's just using distance, turning off the things when you don't need them, and really getting outside into more dispersed areas as much as possible is probably the best things you can do.
Well, those are actually some actionable tips, I think, that make me feel like I can make some changes. What about like cars? Like I think the Rivian is so cute. It's so sporty. It feels very beachy, but I just couldn't do it. I was like, I'm over a battery and in like a Bluetooth connected car. And like, even though it speaks to me in regards to it's like throw the surfboard in the back kind of a thing or on top, I couldn't pull the trigger. And to be honest with you, I'd rather have like my mom's white, like 87 Suburban with like the seat on the ground in the back than like some of these newer cars, because they immediately connect to Apple Play. And I don't know, like maybe I'm like extra sensitive, but I like ended up renting an electric car and it made me like dizzy and kind of headachy.
Yeah. There's a lot. And I think the intuitive thought behind anything that is quote unquote smart, whether it's a smart home, a smart meter, a smart car, is very dumb, because that just basically means the amount of electronics that exist in that product is magnitudes higher, like 5 to 10x more. So then every electronic chip is communicating via EMFs in some regard. And the electric cars is an interesting one because, Tesla, I feel like people talk about this a lot. There's a few different components. There is the radio frequencies, like the Bluetooth, the sensors, and the communication, which is certainly higher. And if that stuff is on automatically, but I can tell you again, the phone is probably going to be a higher source. So your phone and how you use it in the car is going to be the highest source of radio frequencies that exist. Then there's the other side, which is the magnetic field exposure in cars. And this exists for all cars because magnetic fields are emitted from motors, alternating motors. So even like my Toyota 4Runner, which has a V6 engine, where my feet are, the exposure in intensity of magnetic field is actually extremely high because it's very close to the alternator at the front of their car, which is emitting a magnetic field. So that exists for all cars. The smaller the engine, the quote unquote better. But the problem is with electric cars, and this is like stuff that honestly,
big cars.
they don't even worry about this because there's nothing you can do. And it's again, controlling what you can control. The reason why electric cars are bad is because they have a DC battery powering an AC induction motor. And whenever you're changing electricity from DC to AC or AC to DC, there's a lot of EMFs and dirty electricity that is emitted from that process of power conversion. So not only are you getting the magnetic field exposure, you're getting all of that from the power conversion side. And I think that's probably what people are really not doing well with in Teslas and EVs. It's hard to say for certain, but there are, a few studies and measurements I've done. It's definitely higher than like a traditional internal combustion engine. And it just depends on your sensitivity. The other thing here is anyone who tells you that they know everything about EMFs and kind of how it's affecting our biology is wrong, because we know so little, and certain frequencies, certain fields, certain strengths, intensities, it's nonlinear. So magnetic fields, there's studies showing sometimes lower intensity is worse. The frequency, the polarity, and if anyone knows anything about physics, the interactions with fields, like other fields, like I mentioned, there's hundreds, dozens of fields around us at all times. They can interact with each other and then have a different effect on our biology. And then you throw in the fact that the Earth's natural magnetic field, which is very weak, is different in intensity and direction depending where you stand on the planet, is another element. So it's a black box of how this is affecting us. But I can tell you definitely, like electric vehicles, the more electronics are certainly, it seems to be worse off. If you wanted to buy the lowest EMF car, you should buy like a 1995 Camry. That's where the magnetic field stuff's really crazy, because that goes back to the research from the 70s and 80s that I mentioned. And they found that, what like your mom was saying, like power lines at 4 milligauss intensity, which is very, very low. That's what literally my feet in my car is higher than that by like 2-3 fold. 4 milligauss and above is statistically a significant increased risk for childhood leukemia. So that's where all of that fear came from, because that was like, this was on 60 Minutes. This was like mainstream news in the 70s and 80s. And then they did all these studies.
We're like, shh, don't tell anybody.
Well, the power line companies, they actually paid like $20 million or something to do their own study. And then they ended up getting the same results. And they're like, oh, sorry, we can't do anything about it. We need to set the safety standard at 100 milligauss, and everyone in the public just accepts this risk. And if you buy a house next to a substation or power lines, like high voltage, transmission lines especially, you may not know this, and you're just being kind of exposed. So that's my number one recommendation is, if you are moving, buying a new home, building a new home, that is like your golden opportunity to get a good environment.
Yeah.
And it could make a drastic difference depending on like a few hundred yards or like a quarter mile, slightly different neighborhood. I have a friend here who his wife was dealing with these terrible migraines, and I think they were living somewhere, and then they moved to Redondo Beach area and like up in the hills more. And they just happened to be blocked from like all of the cellular signals coming from LA and coming from greater areas based on the topography. And he's like, we stayed there for a week. It was the first time my wife had no migraines in like a decade. So there's some times where you really don't know until you cut everything out. Yeah. And that's where, coming back to my lifestyle and my best recommendation, be a weekend warrior, go camping, go to Montana, go to Wyoming, go to California. It's amazing places with no service, with real nature exposure. And that's when you'll feel normal. And I don't want to say, like, I actually think it's kind of funny that we say, like, all these things are beneficial for us. Yeah. They're really, like, you're just going back to, like, baseline. Like, we are all just so far below baseline. When we go out in nature, we're like, oh, my God, we feel so good. We feel energized. Like, unfortunately, that's just how we should feel. And if you can put yourself in that environment, then you'll realize it. The hard part is coming back then to the city, or
wanting to work on a computer and a phone.
Exactly.
You're like, I quit. We've got an Airstream. We live in Montana somewhere. We're like in the hills. No one can reach me. I know that would just be the dream, honestly. But that's just because like you just have these moments where I just feel so connected to nature, to my kids, to feeling like at peace and happy and light, and like nothing can touch me. Like the resilience of that interaction with nature is really truly hard to beat. Like my favorite parts of any vacation we go on are ones where I'm like, we're in a lake, we're in the ocean, we're skiing, or like, you're outside and you're outside all day. And I will say, I think God's plan was for me to have 3 boys, because there is no world in which we are playing with small toys in the house. We are going from the skate park to the pump track to the beach to surf, back to the skate park, back to the pump track on the cul-de-sac. Like it is just all gas, no brakes, all outside, to like sports games and all of it. And there's just like so much texture to our life because we spend so much time outside. It does make you crave it even more. But like the science has always been a motivator for me. And that's why I knew, like, when I learned about daylight, that I needed to have you on the podcast, because I wanted to understand what I feel like. You follow these people and you're like, oh my God, EMF here, EMF there, all these fields, all this flicker, and you like just try your best within the constructs of like what is today's society. And, I have the Sono lights and like they're blue light free lights, but I'm like, are we allowed to have incandescent lights now? Like, can we mimic nature? How do we do that? How do we put the phones away? But it's not always possible. And that's why I was like so excited to learn about daylight. And I'd love for you to like talk about the tablets we're using, and like how the company started, what the big picture plans are for, and like what the future is.
Yeah. And I think you encapsulated that well. It's so easy to kind of just be overwhelmed by everything. And then I feel like people often end up doing nothing because of that. It's just like, oh, never mind, screw it, it's too hard. But just think of the simple things, like we said, like, yes, spending more time in nature, being deliberate with technology. That's kind of like your two best bets, I would say. And if you're overstressing about everything and turning stuff off, like when you don't need it. But yeah, the whole point of daylight, and Anjan really, he struggled with technology heavily. And that's kind of what led him down a rabbit hole of like display technologies. And, the Kindle was always different for him because it was monochrome. You could use it outside, had a really long battery life. It's not screaming for your attention. Mm-hmm. So that was like an anchor. And it's like, why can't all our devices be like this? Why do, as I often like to say, why do the current devices, they feel like a slot machine. They feel like a Las Vegas casino. And when you think about it on a deeper level, it's exactly what they are. They've curated this environment for us. They're, not really able or well able to be used outside. So they're keeping us indoors. Like I said, major shift from humans as a society, indoors species now. So we're taken away from the real input signals, the real sources of dopamine, the real energizing artifacts that we need there. And now we're inside in a more stressful alien environment. And then they have this form factor that's extremely convenient. It's very close to our body. And the lights that are coming off of it are very bright, they're saturated, and they're flickering. So we're getting just like a casino, these bright flashing lights. And then we sit down and there's the game, right? Mm-hmm. There's the social media, there's the notifications. So we're much more likely to be pulling the slots constantly and almost impossible to walk away from because of that environmental design. Whereas if the devices we all used were able to be used outside, were more neutral in color and not all these bright flashing lights, then we'd probably just get our work done or not be scrolling on TikTok or Instagram for hours. We'd have more sovereignty over where we're spending our attention.
Yeah.
And that's really what's been taken away from us and that's not by mistake either. We quite literally live in an attention-based economy. You can hear Zuckerberg and these guys talk about it. Like, that is their business model, is to keep us on device longer, to proliferate the consumerism base that drives the US and global economy forward. And that's only going to continue to increase. Now they're hiring AI engineers like, professional soccer players with $1 million transfer fees. It's crazy because they realize that's the race. And even in the past 2 years, like the algorithm and the customization of the ad experience on these platforms is so good, it's not even fair anymore. Like, I literally can barely have Instagram on my phone anymore, and I'm super deliberate about it. I also think I suffer because I'm also very intentional. So where I'm more sensitive, I'm not as desensitized like everyone else. Or a lot of people, I should say, that are just, exposed to this stuff all the time. And that's the premise. That's the kind of backdrop. So going back to what if technology could be just a tool and could be used outside, that's what daylight is. Daylight is designed to just be a tool that brings out the best in humanity, because it is amazing that we can connect online, that we can learn all this stuff I learned online. I read research articles, and then I emailed a lot of these researchers. I podcasted with them, similar to we're doing here now. And that's brilliant, right? That is the amazing effect and capabilities of the digital world, is the whole kind of world's knowledge is at our fingertips. The problem is we just end up doing a little bit of learning and then a lot of distracted interactions and mostly consuming now. And that is not necessary. It doesn't have to be that way. So our premise is, okay, let's take the good of technology and this digital medium and really try and have a device that allows you to focus your energy so it can only be spent on learning, getting work done, building, creating the best moments of what it means to be human, and having that rooted in the physical world so that you're only in the digital world for that kind of learning, for that augmenting. You are consuming that instead of it consuming you. You're not the product, you're interfacing with the product. And that frame switch is so important because that will allow us to then really level up. And I think especially like AI, I mentioned already, these tools are incredible. Like you can run deep research and do, you could probably write a book in like a fifth of the time because now you have all these tools just available to research all these things and put it together in a nice list. But if you outsource that to just writing your emails or like responding to someone, like the basic thinking functions of a human, that's kind of worrisome. And I think, what we've really tried to focus on at first is the display itself. So the display, we invented a new display stack, and where's the camera? Here. Yeah. We got best to explain it is to say it's a Kindle on steroids. The best way to sell it and market it for what it really is a healthier iPad. That's what I would like to say, because the Kindle on steroids premise is the fact that the display of a Kindle is too slow to be used for anything else outside of reading and writing. And that's where this whole e-reader market has lived there for the entirety of existence.
Yeah.
So we wanted to bring that monochrome, that digital paper experience to a fully functional tech device, tablet, as the first product. So that's what we did. And the new display technology we have enables that. So not only can you read on it, write on it, like a Kindle, like a Remarkable, but you can now watch videos, you can go on social media, you can do emails, you can connect to keyboard and use it like a mini laptop because the refresh rate is fast enough. So now all of a sudden it becomes a quote unquote healthier iPad or a healthier tablet because of that. Because you can use it outside in the direct sun, it's no longer confining you from the indoor environment, and you're getting the right input signals. And then at nighttime, like you can see here, my backlight, my light of my screen is tinted amber. We custom made LEDs that are 100% blue light free and 100% flicker free. So again, unlike your Apple night mode, which is a scam, it's not getting rid of all the blue light, it's not doing anything for flicker. Unlike blue light blockers, which are great, but they're really a Band-Aid and nobody is really going to wear those, the dark red ones. And actually wearing a dark red lens or having dark red LEDs is pretty inconsistent with nature, and it's straight up a terrible user experience, and you end up like tripping on your dog and like breaking your leg because you can't see anything. So our backlight's amber on purpose. It's more similar to like a fire or a candle spectrum. It's broad and it's still very warm. So melatonin disruption, sleep quality is far better because of that. So it's just like list out all the reasons why technology is not synergistic with humanity and nature, and we're just going down the list to fix them one by one, and we're just getting started. So this is the first product, and we have, as you can probably tell, a lot of ideas, a lot of aspirations to continue to improve it. Everything from the light to the EMFs to the form factors and the products that we offer.
Yeah, I would say from a user experience, from like a Kindle or a Remarkable to Daylight, like I do plug in the keyboard to this and have been able to, I'm in the midst of writing my third book. It's not going at a fifth of a speed quite yet, but it has changed everything. Like I threw a beach towel down on our balcony in my backyard and like was in a bathing suit writing it like a couple of weeks ago. And I would never be able to do that on a MacBook. But I think what connected with me the most, or what was like most exciting for me, was actually for kids. I mean, in a perfect world, I'm homeschooling my kids on a like ranch, and they're, in nature all day long. And the reality is like, I am responsible for their education. I'm responsible for the mortgage on our house. I have a big job that I've created that I love, and like trying to find like that happy medium without feeling like a perfectionist. Like my boys don't have, we've rented iPads for, and I'm putting air quotes if you're listening in your car, like for our flights. They don't have access to iPads at our house. And what they do and have had access to is daylight with some of the kids programming that, you so generously sent over to me that were compatible. And it that's been kind of interesting because I was really anti them having an iPad or being kind of like growing up iPad kids, and they're so little. But I know like in a traditional school, like we talked about this, these kids are getting Chromebooks. They're under, flickering, like, I don't even know, fluorescent tube lights inside 6 hours of the day and then learning on tablets. Like that's really scary for me when I think about like the next couple of years. And I'm so hopeful that like the Daylight Kids program can take off and that we can like get these into schools because it would change everything for these kids.
Yeah. And that's what we realized. We always, when we launched, we knew kind of the healthier iPad for kids would be a massive market and a massive like just passion for us to go after. Mm-hmm. And we decided more recently, like, okay, let's now, we spent a lot of 2024 catching up on inventory and growing the company to actually have a platform to jump off of. And now it's like, okay, where can we actually have the biggest impact? Who has the largest unmet need? And what audience is really going to resonate with what we're communicating and what we're building. Yeah. And it was so obvious to me after this summer. I was talking to a lot more parents and teachers and would talk to all these superintendents in New Hampshire. And yeah, they were like, we give Chromebooks to kindergartners because that's how it's been since COVID. And I was mind blown. I was 7 years old. And the next thing I was mind blown by was the fact that I didn't even need to convince them. I had a whole presentation of like blue light and dopaminergic light. And they were like, oh yeah, the kids? Yeah, it's really bad. I'm like, well, why? Well, how do you know? They're like, well, we spend 8 hours a day with them. We know. Since COVID, it's gotten really bad, and they go down the list. The behavioral issues, they just lack presence completely. They don't have the communication skills, just the overall verbal development, learning, everything across the board. And recently I've gone down all these research rabbit holes because you think, this is true. Screens are bad for kids. And now I don't even need to convince most parents, most moms. This is like probably like number one issue for moms out there is like screen time and feeling guilty about it and feeling pressured. I don't want to be an iPad kid, but it is nice to have something every now and then. And then I don't want them to be a Luddite and never use a piece of technology. So it's this real like problem. And it's great for us because I don't even need to convince them about it. They're like,
tell me what?
they know better than we do. You know better than I do. And I think that's great for us because what we want to bring is a solution.
Yeah.
Hey, when you are ready as a parent, whether it's 4-year-old for dozens of minutes a week, or whether it's a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, that's totally up to you. But whenever you're ready to introduce the digital world in small bites at first to your children, the Daylight is the best solution because it's designed to be low stimulation. You can use it outside, and it's not going to just totally hijack their reality. And the craziest, most scary stuff to dive into is how much more sensitive kids are from a biological perspective. They let in 50% more blue light. Their retinas are not fully developed. They hold the devices like 2 to 3 times closer. So everything is like 3 to 5x intensity. And they're developing their neural circuitry based on the environment and the reality that is presented to them. They're learning. They're not fully developed. So that dopamine they're getting is to drive them biologically to learn and map it out. So if you hand them an iPad for 4 hours a day, that's going to be the reality that they map out. And then you see what happens when you take it away from them. Yeah. They lose their marbles and the tantrums get worse and worse and worse. But as a parent, often it's like so helpful to have just like 10 minutes here, 15 minutes there, or you don't want them to fall completely behind. And then all of a sudden they're getting them in schools anyway. And you ask teachers about managing the kind of response and just overall relationship with technology, and it's even more concerning. So for us, the daylight doesn't evoke that response because it's monochrome. It's designed to be boring. It's designed to be less attractive than your children going outside and playing in the backyard. And we want them to put it down. We want them to fall asleep looking at the screen at nighttime because the melatonin suppression is not like, I think it's like 2x in kids compared to adults. It's up to like 80-90% suppression for bright light at night because that's how sensitive they are. And again, just none of this has to be that way, but you want them to be able to know these tools and know the digital world slowly as they get older. So that's where we're really excited about. We're launching, I think it'll be out by the time this comes out, kids.dailycomputer.com, like a kids bundle with a kids case, because we know that's important for kids.
Yeah, they need handles.
Like 5-inch bumper pads so it never breaks. But yeah, we're so excited because think of everything we've learned in the health realm, everything you've learned, everything I've learned. I can say what I'm most passionate about is like applying that knowledge for the next generation. Like that's what we're meant to do as humans, is foster a better environment for those that come after us. And right now, on average, we're doing the opposite of that as a society. We're fostering a worse environment for our children, and we see the results of it. I mean, it's mental health crises through the roof, their physical health, their metabolic health, and that all can be tied not only just to them being couch potatoes, but it's because the light and the environment of the technology being the main driver of their day-to-day is affecting their physiology on a cellular level. And that has to be, to me, the ultimate concern. And it's really challenging because parents are in this sticky situation where they don't know what to do. They feel guilty if they do, and they feel guilty if they don't. And we just want to offer something that gives them a solution, or at least a tool to have a better dynamic with their family and return to being a family again, which is most important.
Oh, I mean, I'm so grateful to you guys for doing something. I mean, this is like beyond me to think about removing flicker and blue lights from tablets, but being able to do like Khan Academy Kids or like some kind of learning tool. Like it's the first time I've been excited to say yes or give my children a little bit of freedom without holding them back. Because there's that guilt of like, well, I do know a couple kids that have access to, screens or YouTube or video games, and they're like really smart. They're reading like chapter books at 7. They're, and they're processing so fast. And you're like, oh, am I holding my kids back by being like, get outside and get on your bike? So I'm just like grateful to have a happy medium. And I'm like going to pound the pavement to get these into my kids' schools before Bash is handed a Chromebook, because it's just, I don't want those tantrums. We give them we've had this conversation like months ago. Like I give my boys like cartoons on the weekends. And I feel like when I'm like, it's the last one. Just a reminder, 2 minutes, it's the last one. Like there's no amount of prep. When I press the power button on that television, it is like, like meltdown city, and you're like, wait, but you love the pump track, you love the skate park, you love the beach. Like we're going to go play a sports game. Like you're going to go do the things you love, but like they can't even, there's like no reality in which it takes like 5 minutes to like clear their brain of that being over. So I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful. I'm going to put links in the show notes for the kids program and the bundles and Daylight. I know for a long time I was trying to get it and you kept selling out. So it's going to be, I know, a very popular device for a lot of people because it's a great way to, even just like, not only am I writing my book, but I love reading books, and I used to read on my phone in the Books app, and I would do the triple click to make it amber or red, and I thought I was good, but I could go till 1 or 2 in the morning if it was a really good book. And I think it had a lot to do with the light. So it's changed everything. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, amazing. And I think we're looking for feedback from moms, especially from parents. We're looking for community leaders because like you said, getting this into schools is the ultimate end target for us, because I think that's where we can have the biggest impact overall. And a lot of people don't have maybe the fortune of homeschooling or private schooling, although education seems to be reforming, like actually for the first time in the existence of the modern education system, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more programs coming up to support that, to support homeschooling. But it all starts at the local level. And unfortunately, I can't go and talk to like every school district in the country. So it starts with a few parent advocates. And yeah, I think that's something we're really, really passionate about, because I think it's absolute insanity that we're giving children as young as 6 years old in schools like one-to-one learning. And then we wonder why the development is so delayed. And more kids are also, as a result of this, they're on individualized education plans or special education plans. There's more and more kids with autism, ADHD, neurodivergent, mental health conditions, and those kids need it the most.
Yeah.
And that's where really it's just changing the trajectory at a high level, how we engage with technology in this digital world. And it starts with the kids. So
100%. And I will say, as someone, where I always take it back to food, I'm like, how you feel when you eat a whole food, like, protein, fiber, plants, like, how you feel, how you sleep, your energy levels. I feel like that's going to come with technology too. If our children are on, blue light free, flicker free tablets, they're going to feel and notice a big difference. It'll be like walking into a Vegas casino when they get on the real ones. And like that kind of real, like you're talking about food, feeling the change of food, feeling the change of working out, like we can feel the change when you use this device. And I think it's that experience that'll change everything for people.
Yeah, especially I felt it the most personally when I like cut those things out, and then as you mentioned, you come back to them. So
you're like, whoa!
It's a bit more subtle, but absolutely. And then at the end of the day, it's a tool for parents, because you guys have crazy lives. Like it's the most important job in the world, in my opinion, and we should be able to make that easier and still have the kind of removal of the detriments of, because obviously your kids' health and safety, and especially in a digital world, is paramount. So it's all doable, I would say. And I wouldn't count on Apple and Google changing their business models anytime soon.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Tristan, for all this phenomenal scientific information, for the real life tips, and for having a solution. I really appreciate it. I'll put links to where people can follow along in the show notes, but where can they find you, and where can they learn more about Daylight?
Yeah, kids.daylightcomputer.com is the new website. Have a kids bundle there, as mentioned, so definitely check that out. We'll have a new socials, daylight.kids on Instagram. Normal is daylightcomputer.com and at daylightco. And then I am at Tristan_health on Instagram. So
thank you so much.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Be Well by Kelly LeVeque podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a review in your favorite podcast app and subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. We're also excited to share that full-length video episodes are now on YouTube and Spotify, so you can watch along as you listen. The best way to support me and the show is by sharing it with your friends and family. Your recommendations make all the difference. This is a Wellness Loud production produced by Drake Peterson. The video is recorded by Luke Rodriguez and edited by Jesse Trout. Sound mixing is by Mike Fry. See you next time.
The content of this show is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for individual medical or mental health advice and does not constitute a provider-patient relationship. As always, talk to your doctor or healthcare team first. Shout out to the Newport Beach Pendry for hosting us. I'm so grateful to record in such a beautiful space that truly elevates the podcast experience for myself and my guests. From the stunning design to their incredible hospitality, it's a perfect setting for meaningful conversations and creative energy. Hey, thanks, Pendry.